throughout this land today there are men who have heard their call. They are our faithful ministers, God's watchmen on the wall. There is a special crown for them in heaven, so I'm told. God bless these faithful ministers, they're watching for our soul.
Welcome to the Watchman's Call. We invite you to study with us the ancient prophecies of the Bible and witness their fulfillment in our modern times.
I see an ancient city surrounded by a wall, and as the night approaches, I hear a watchman call to all God-fearing citizens.
This is part 2 of the prophetic lessons of David and Goliath. Simple childhood story we've heard all our life, but we're looking at how this story, this account in time, this battle relates to us in our modern times now, and how it can actually help direct us through some of the battles we're having now. So let's just back up a little bit into where we left off. If you remember, David had just convinced Saul that he was capable of defeating this Philistine. We call him Goliath. That was his name. Saul only seen a kid. He just didn't have any confidence in this young man. Don't that happen to us today when we're trying to accomplish something, and the folks seems like the ones that's over us that really has a lot of the say so, they just don't see what God has done in us. It might be God calling you into a ministry, and maybe your pastor or your dad or some family member, they just see you as the young kid they've always known, man or woman, whatever it is, don't matter. But they just cannot accept that God has actually called you. You don't look the part. You're not, churchy looking. You're not, all of that glorified looking, I guess, and dignified sounding. But God has called you for a certain purpose. And folks, this story, this battle that actually happened, this should encourage all of us, no matter what we're going through. If we can just see how David was just absolutely steadfast, he wasn't going to accept no for an answer, really. So let's look back. He had just talked to Saul. Saul said, "You're just a kid. You can't fight this guy. He's a warrior. He's been a warrior since he was a kid." And David said, "Let me fill you in on something, Saul. A while back, there was a bear come to take one of my dad's sheep." Y'all know the story, and I ain't going to just dwell on it. But I defeated that bear, and I saved that sheep. Then there was a lion come, and I defeated that lion, and I protected that sheep. And then he explained to Saul, the reason that happened is because God's power. God helped me defeat that bear and that lion. And this ain't no different. This Philistine, this uncircumcised Philistine is trying to come against my father. This time it was God, my father's sheep, which was Israel. And so he was saying, there's no difference. The same God will deliver me in the same way. And Saul finally said, he was convinced. In verse 37 of chapter 17 in 1 Samuel, Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Now, again, I don't want to take up a whole lot of time, but there's a reason Saul said, "And the Lord be with you." It wasn't just wishing him well. If you back up and read in chapters 15 and 16, I believe it is, you'll see where Saul messed up. And he really messed up with God. And Samuel had come and told Saul, "Look, man, you messed up bad." Y'all can read it for yourself, the things that he did. But God told Samuel, "I'm done with Saul. I'm picking a new king." And all of this happened before David ever showed up on the scene when Goliath was there. Read it. It's an amazing, amazing story. And it may speak to you about how God is actually preparing the way for you to do your work, because maybe somebody's refusing, or somebody's fell out of the grace with God, or somebody ain't doing right, and God needs something done important, and that somebody might just be you. So let's get back into this. Now, so Saul said, "Okay, David, I'm with you. I'm going to let you go fight the giant, but you can't go like that. I got to help you get prepared." So y'all know how the story goes, how Saul dressed him up in all his stuff, his armor, his helmet, and all the stuff. And David stood there, and y'all can read about this in verses 38 through 39. And David was sitting there kind of rattling around, and he said, man, I can't even move in this. I can't go fight nobody like this. I hadn't tested it. In other words, I don't even know how to make this work. Here's the lesson in that part. If God calls you to a work and he sets you for that work, he will prepare you. Don't depend on somebody else. And I know this could get me in trouble with a lot of church people because the elders in different churches, different situations, all that stuff, they think they got to tell you how to do what God is sending you out to do. That's not so all the time, especially if it's an emergency situation like David and the Israelites and Saul, all of them was facing. Excuse me. So David took all that stuff off. He said, man, I can't do nothing with this. I got to go like God has prepared me. Remember, I told you about the bear and the lion. You remember that, right, Saul? You remember. I didn't wear all this stuff then, so I'm just going to have to go the way God's telling me to go. Trust in the Lord, and he will prepare you. He will make sure that you are ready. He will make sure that everything is going to go according to his plans as long as you take the step, right? So y'all know how David left out of there, and he stopped by a brook, and he got him up 5 smooth stones. David was prepared not just for Goliath. Goliath had 4 brothers, and David was prepared to take all 4 of them guys out. He was prepared for a bear. He was prepared for a lion. When he was watching the sheep out in the wilderness, he had his stones in his pouch. He was ready for a fight if a fight come up. So let's move on down the line. Well, you be prayed up and you be ready. If God says he's fixing to send you out to do a certain work, you be ready. He will prepare you. Verse 41 says, so David went and met with Goliath for the battle. The giant, he made fun. He ridiculed David for being so little, called him insignificant looking. He threatened David, cursed him by the Philistine gods. And then this is what he said. I will feed you to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. Now, folks, that's a pretty tough threat. That means they're going to kill you. I will feed you to the beast of the field and the birds of the air. So here we understand that we have to face our enemy or a situation head on. Don't be shaken by any of the ridicule or the evil threats. Stand your ground until God says speak. See, David didn't say nothing. He had went out. He actually had went towards the armies of the Philistines, but Goliath was standing in the middle. But he didn't say nothing. He let Goliath just run his mouth, all this roaring and all this racket that he was making. David didn't say anything until God told him to speak. But David, what happened? David had called him out. David said in verse 45, listen real close. And this is how the devil is. He comes at you with all this threatening stuff. But David said, you coming against me with a sword and a spear and with a javelin, are you going to need all of that to defeat me? Is that what you think? I'm impressed with me, Goliath. If you think it's going to take all that to defeat me, see, he was mocking Goliath in front of all of his army and in front of all of Israel. Now, what happens next is just as important, okay? David said this, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defiled. Basically, David said, all of your armor is useless, Goliath. You're already dead and you don't even know it. So what is this telling us? What is God trying to tell us in this? Profess your call and boldly declare why God has called you to this place and claim God's victory over your enemies, over the situation. You proclaim it. Proclaim it. See, David knew that the battle was the Lord's. He was just like an instrument God was going to use, right? So David said in verse 46, this day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you, pay real close attention to this, and take your head from you. Not just that, and this day I will give the carcass of the camp of the Philistines, that means all of your warriors, to the birds of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth. The very same threat that Goliath used against him, David put it right back on him. Man, I mean, he just called him out. See, he was saying, Goliath, this don't just end with you. God's going to destroy you and all of your army. Here's a question. Why would David do this? The answer is that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. David was there to prove a point. All of these men that he's seen scared and running, he couldn't understand. Man, y'all are the armies of God, the armies of Israel. Why are you afraid of this? He just could not understand that. And he backed it up with this. Verse 47, then all this assembly may know. All this assembly meant all of Israel, that the Lord does not save with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's. He knew that, and he will give you into our hands. Wow. Talking about somebody being brave. He is standing there physically, a young man, in front of a nearly 10-foot tall man of war, and proclaiming this. And I don't believe his voice was shaking one little bit. When David said that, Goliath just couldn't take it anymore. He'd had all he could take from this kid mouthing off at him. His anger overtook him, and he charged David. Now, here's one of the lessons, folks. So when you do face your enemy, you need to be prepared for your enemy or the situation to charge at you in a rage, because, see, the devil hates you. Whether you know it or not, whether you want to admit it or not, whether anybody has ever told you that, if you are a true born-again Christian, Satan hates you and he wants to destroy you. And that's not meant to scare you. That's just meant to open your eyes to the warfare that we're actually in this day. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed at all. We got different gadgets and different doodads, but it's the same fight. Remember when we first started this story, there was an army of God on one mountain, an army of Satan on the other mountain, and a valley, the battlefield in the middle. It is still that way today. There's only two armies, God and everybody else. God on one side, everybody else on the other side. Okay, now like we said, be prepared for the enemy to charge you. Be prepared. Physically, spiritually, whatever it is, be prepared. Verse 48 said, when the Philistine came to meet David, folks, Goliath, he wasn't just walking casually with some kind of little stroll going on with a smirk on his face. He was mad, and he was ready to just run at David, probably just stomp him to death. I don't know what his plans were, but he was going to kill David. And the scripture says this, as Goliath was going toward David, what was happening? What was David doing? See, folks, when that happens, don't just stand there, but don't run away either. Remember, God has prepared you for this moment, for this battle. You have been chosen and trained. Don't forget your training throughout time. David's is represented by the bear and the lion. We can look back at our bears and our lions and our situations and all of that stuff that God has brought us through, preparing us for this fight. In the name of the Lord, take the fight to the enemy. You have to charge the enemy. See, David's ready. He was ready for this fight. He knew Goliath's moves, just like he knew the moves of the bear and the lion. He knew he only had a short time. This is very important. Very, very important for us to pay attention to this part. He knew he only had a very short time to defeat Goliath. Pretty much the same way with the bear and the lion. See, that explains this. While David was heading toward Goliath, in verse 49, he put his hand in his bag and took out a stone. The word says a stone, just one, and slung it and struck the Philistine in the forehead, so that the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the earth. He fell on his face to the earth. See, Goliath didn't grab his forehead and stumble around and still reaching out for David and still trying to get to David. When that stone hit him and sunk in his head, he quit running. And it says he fell on his face to the earth. Face first, straight to the earth. And verse 50 says, so David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him. Now think about this. David didn't have a sword. He didn't have one with the bear and the lion either, but he had to get Goliath's head. So what happened about all that? Okay, folks, that's all the time we've got for part 2. So join us for part 3, and we'll find out how this battle ends and how these lessons can help us in our battle. Y'all be blessed and keep watching.
And when the night is long and dark, it seems I hear a prayer. Oh God above, look down in love and keep us in your care. Watchman.
Thank you for joining with us here at the Watchman's Call. My friends, Jesus is coming back very soon. The signs for his return are showing up all over the world, even as we speak right now. Our job is to reach as many people as we can and warn them about his return. And you can help us do that by sharing these messages with everybody you know. That means the saint and the sinner. Everyone must be warned, and we don't have much time left. Y'all be blessed and keep watching. And remember, leave us a comment to let us know your thoughts and concerns.